Hello. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Will Vincent, a Python developer advocate at PyCharm, and I'm joined by Michael Kennedy,
Hey,
co-host
hey.
of Talk Python, Python Bytes, Talk Python Training. So welcome.
Will, thank you for having me. It's great to be back together. This is our first JetBrains podcast together, or
It is.
webcast together, but we've been on the Talk Python podcast together before, right?
We have,
Or the Django
and
chat, yeah.
Talk Python, and then you were very supportive to me starting with Django Chat
Yeah,
6 years
glad
ago.
to, yeah, incredible, right?
Yeah.
Still going strong. It's awesome to see.
So today we're going to talk about UV. Let's cover some basics here. So if there's any questions, you can ask them in the chat. We'll have a Q&A at the end, but we'll also do it as we're going. So feel free to ask questions. Skip to the next one. Oh, Michael, do you have it or do I?
You do?
It's me. Uh-oh. There we go. And as a reminder, this session is being recorded. It'll be on YouTube after.
In fact, it's written in ink. it's there now. So
Michael, you're the guest. UV, why are we here? Why is everyone so excited about it?
Well, UV is, I'll tell you what, when I saw UV, I was just, wow, this is something. And I immediately reached out to Charlie Marsh and I said, we got to talk about this on the podcast because this has the possibility to really change things. So UV comes from a company called Astral. Astral originally, I believe, was created with Ruff, R-U-F-F, as the kernel of their technology by Charlie Marsh, and is now a proper company doing quite a bit of major things in Python. Like really, just they're kind of going through the lower level infrastructure and saying, yeah, this is working, but could it be better, right? So Ruff started out as take everything that you could do in linting in Python, around like 800 rules or something like that, and make it so fast that you can run it continuously. And that's a theme with all the stuff that the Astral folks are doing is speed. But I think that obscures a little bit of just how much polish it puts on everything else, right? So you can see right on their homepage, they have got this graph that says, how long does it take to set up a project in the different tools that might do that, right? So we have pip that people use traditionally, but over the last handful of years, higher level project flows, for lack of better description, have come along in different tools. We've got Hatch, we've got Poetry, we have PDM, we have pip sync, we have pip env, which is different than PyEnv, right? These things are all about, well, the way that we work with Python dependencies and express those in repeatable ways is too low level and too manual, is what I believe a lot of these projects are effectively saying. And they've come up with different ways built on the existing tools like pip and others to give you a higher level thing like Poetry, new project, or pip env shell, and so on. And then it sets up the Python path with all the dependencies set correctly because people keep messing that up or the tools are too low level, or some combination thereof. Right? So UV comes along and says, yes, but why so many different tools? Why are we still stitching together all these things? And could we do it in a way that was instant? And that's the theme we see a lot, right? Like with Ruff, I remember the first time I ran Ruff on the Talk Python training course code, which is about 20,000 lines of Python. I hit enter and it went, here's the answer of,
Yeah, it's like, did it even run?
yeah, I must have run it wrong. Like it probably didn't do the subdirectories or something, because there's no way that it was that fast. And we'll see over and over with UV, and then going forward with TY, type checking tools coming from the same company, that's a big theme. But I don't know how you feel about it. Well, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Like, I think the speed people always talk about the speed, and it's Rust and speed, and it's not just fast because it's Rust. It's fast
Hmm.
because they've rethought a lot of things. But I think that hides a lot of the fact of like, well, pip is fast enough for me. Somebody might say, well, then I don't need this.
Yeah, we're going to get to some of the objections, but I think it's not just speed. It's a complete one tool to rule them all. It's also learning from the Rust ecosystem with Cargo. I mean, other languages that are newer have looked at Python and said, let's not make those same mistakes. So it's not just that it's rewritten, it's also borrowing techniques. And Charlie and the team will freely admit this. So
Yeah.
I, for myself, I'm not really a big early adopter, but I'm using it. And so we'll get into why. It's sometimes hard to get excited about a tool, but in this case, I think it's worth it.
It absolutely is. And we'll talk about it.
Okay.
So
Should we go to the next slide?
one more thing really quick. So this brings together a lot of these tools. If you go to the website, it'll say like, this is, instead of replacement's a bit of a harsh word. And I don't know. I want to put a little bit of a statement on there to just, thank everybody that's worked on all of these other projects. And at least personally, my fandom for UV is not to go trash on these other projects, right? Like Hatch, Poetry, all these, pip tools, all of these things that are really, really great. Still remain to be great, but it is pretty awesome to have just one thing. But the most important here is that these others can't bring or don't bring is Python versioning. But in that, when you have no Python version, you can use UV as a gateway to getting Python installed, the right version of Python installed, and so on. And that really is transformative because with every other tool, it's been, okay, first you install Python. You got the right version, didn't you? I hope you got the right version. Oh, is it in the path? No, the wrong one is the path. Okay, get the right one in the path. Now you can start doing this. Yeah, exactly. And now you can start doing this really nice workflow with it. It's like after tripping over your feet for a while, right? And UV is sort of changes that narrative and says UV, and then you go from there, literally, even if you don't have Python.
Right. So I think for beginners, they're just going to use UV and not even know these pains that we felt. I mean, I was telling you offline 6-7 years ago, one of my top blog posts was how to install Python, which seems crazy now, but it wasn't so easy. There are lots of different ways. So in some ways, that's the biggest thing UV does for beginners is it just removes that barrier.
100%. All right.
Let's go. Oops. So before we get into it, I'll just say, how do you work? Whoop. Oh, Michael, you're in charge.
Oh, I am, yes. Sorry. We have the same slides on two screens, and so nobody knows what to click. Okay, go ahead, Will.
Oh, so how do you work with it? It's just one line install. You can install it with Homebrew lots of different ways. The key point is one time and then you're done. It's a global install. This looks scary if you're a beginner, but that's it. Then you're good to go.
Yeah, and I'd also add, this is the way. There are other ways to do it, but those are not the way.
No, do it this way. Then you get the auto updates and everything else.
Exactly, because you can pip install UV, and then for that project, you have UV capabilities. There might be a brew install. I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways.
Yep.
Yeah. And with all of those other ways, you have to find a way to keep UV up to date. Whereas if you install it this way, one, you don't need Python even to start, or at least those two things are disconnected. And two, UV can manage itself, and it's more important than a lot of projects to keep it up to date, which is a little bit weird because when UV knows how to install different versions of Python, which is great, but I believe just to keep things fast and fluid or whatever for the developer experience, it doesn't reach out to any sort of API to know what versions of Python are available. So if you install UV, 6 months later, Python 3.14 ships, and you say install Python 3.14, it's like, I don't know what that is, because it's like burned into it. So it's more important than normal to keep it up to date and have it just run UV self update. That's why this is the way.
Yeah, and I want to add a question here. So Chris May, hey Chris, I think this is very common that when you're working on teams, you feel this pain. If you're a newcomer or solo projects, maybe less so, but so it sort of solves problems beginners won't have, but these are real problems we've all had.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So
It
just do it
does.
this, just do it that way. That, we're going to give you on the
Yes.
one hand this, on the one hand that, but for install, just do that.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, we wanted to start off this presentation by kind of going through this really fun, well, really interesting
Yeah.
tweet post or whatever X thread by Armin Ronacher, a creator of Flask, as many people probably know him. So really simple, but you can see 209 comments. And those have, like sort of fall. This was like a really big thread there. So Armin asks, if you use Python, why don't you use UV yet? you know? And so there's a bunch of interesting insight into where people are. So we're gonna take turns going through this. So a couple of the thoughts here that stood out to me was Bruno says, "Hey, I use it on my own project, but I haven't migrated at work yet. We're blocked by Dependabot support and finding time to migrate." Okay, I don't know. For those of you who use Dependabot, you like getting a lot of email, I know, because Dependabot goes absolute bonkers and sends you email like a separate pull request for every dependency update
And then every
independently.
month too, it hits you with packages.
Yeah, I would wake up. I would wake up every week a Monday morning with probably 30 or 40 emails from Dependabot. I mean, please just put it in a digester. Well, anyway, Dependabot is a tool that looks at your project in GitHub that says, "Oh, I see you depend on, I don't know, Flask 1.2, but Flask 2.1 is released, and we've done a PR to update it. Why doesn't Dependabot support it? Well, it has a new lock format, so too bad." Or, as we're going to see, there's a whole spectrum of ways in which you can use this, and many of those still have perfectly good Dependabot support. Gilang said, "I just think pip and virtual environment are still convenient to work with. The simplicity of requirements.txt. Interop between Python versions is seamless because it's just pip install -r requirements." So, again, we'll see. You can still do all this stuff, and I think people are seeing in this little view of the world. People are seeing UV as, oh, you have to like do a poetry or pip in style where you throw away everything you know and you start from scratch, and that's why I wanted to highlight it, because not true. Well,
Yeah, just to add, the adoption is a couple of minutes max. Many of these tools you do have to spend minutes, hours fiddling with, and you really don't with UV. So let me pull it up here. So usually I bring in another tool I can't live without, and basically saying maybe I'm not an early adopter type. And I feel that I'm that. I spent most of last year not using UV, even as everyone around me was using it. PyPI stats going through the roof, just because my workflow was fine. But again, it's not just fast, it's easier, and it's a couple of minutes and you're done. So I haven't used a tool that's that easy before. And again, for someone who teaches like you, Michael, it's a no-brainer for beginners. It just solves so many problems, and we just start programming. You want to add something?
I 100%. I think the ease of adoption is so smooth. I think the other thing that comes to mind when you point that out is the automation. It's like I've got all of these series of shortcuts or aliases, or I've got these scripts, and then how do I restructure them to still work? If does it change the shell? And then how does that still run? There's like with these other tools, it really changes more than just what you type
Yeah.
to get started. There's like a knock-on effect, and it doesn't have to be here.
Right. You assume this is the same thing I've seen before that was painful and then it broke. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to
Yeah.
relive that. This is an interesting one comment by Lightfoot here. saying, well, it's not built in. And I think that's valid, but I think that misunderstands the Python ecosystem, excuse me. I mean, requests is not built in. Everything can't be part of core, and it shouldn't. So I understand the impulse to say, well, it's not core Python, but so many things aren't, and core Python team already has enough to deal with.
There's a really interesting story about requests. You know, the super popular HTTP client library from Kenneth Wright's. There was one point 3 or 4 years ago where there was a proposal to make requests a built-in thing for CPython, and basically replace URLib2 and then URLib3 and so on, like the built-in ways, because everyone noticed no one is using the built-in stuff in the standard library. They're all using requests. At the time, it was even more popular than it is now. And they decided, the core devs decided, we're not going to accept this. We're not going to put requests in. Not because they didn't like it, but because they said it would harm requests and constrain it to be shipped only once a year on the cycle that CPython releases in October, November timeframe. And it would basically mean that requests couldn't do as much as it could, right? Like they had
Right.
to treat it really differently. And it not only would it not necessarily be that beneficial for CPython, it would harm the really important tools by making them official. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, there is this idea that someone somewhere has infinite time and money to work on stuff, and that's just nowhere. It's not the Python core team. It's not the Django core team. Like, you need these third-party things that can iterate faster and become quasi-official. And maybe at some point they become official, but often they're better off being, as you say, to the side for a number of reasons.
Yeah. Request can release every day if it wants. You know?
And also HTTPX, you can have more innovation in the ecosystem that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. I've been using HTTPX as well because request didn't get async support, which, that's another thing. Like once you adopt it, if it doesn't quite adapt right, then it. So this comment by Duan's like, it's not officially part of it. I wouldn't necessarily see that as something it needs to be or even something it should be.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So Matt Holden said, I should try it, but I haven't. I get that it replaces pip and PyEnv. Like you can install stuff and you can manage Python versions. But should I also use it for creating virtual environments? Python-M, VENV sort of thing? Yes, says Armin. Just a better resolver, better developer experience in general. No more need for Python installers, et cetera, right?
Well, that's part of it. It's fast, not just because of Rust, but they rewrote the resolver. And I know the pip team was working on this too and did speed things up, but this is a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're a Primogen fan, skill issue. Not to pick on Matt, but like it just in general across this whole different set of perspectives, like you realize that it actually does the thing the same way, or it does, and so on. All right. Oliver says, the main blocker I've seen in organizations is that Astral's business model is not clear. Folks are cautious after Docker and Conda pricing changes. So UV is funded by, Astral is funded by venture capital. So it's like, well, what if they all of a sudden you pay a cent per dependency install or update, some weird model, right? Like, no. I've talked to Charlie about this a lot, and obviously promises don't equal future. Promises equal intent, right? He says we have no intention of monetizing this. We want to build services and other offerings on top of these tools. So
it's also MIT license, so you can just fork it. Whereas in Anaconda, it's a little more complicated there.
Yeah, Anaconda is almost infrastructure as well, which is a whole different deal. Yeah, so you just fork it.
Yeah,
and you could take it if it went completely, utterly sideways. Though I do want to also put an alternate spin on this. We've seen a lot of these different attempts and partial successes with the different tools to manage Python dependencies. Think pip env, think poetry, think of all these different tools that are out there, pip tools, pipx. They've solved either one small particular problem, or they've kind of like, well, I know it takes a while to install, but that's probably fine. And once a team of people had it their full-time job every day, all day, to make this better, it got 100 times faster. It got way more features. Like, it really transformed something that's been a super bad sore spot. Python version management, dependency management, all of that kind of stuff within just a couple of months. And so while Oliver says, look, this could be a really bad angle, this is also why it exists, basically.
And it's hard work. You create something great, and then you get all the PRs and complaints. And if you're not charging for it, it can be hard to push through.
Yeah. So I'm not suggesting they charge money for UV, but I do think there's something different. Like, we saw this with the faster CPython team as well. If you put together a team of people and you say, this is your full-time job to solve this problem that's been picked at from different angles by different people over the years, all of a sudden, like, oh, look, Python's like multiple times faster all of a sudden. That's interesting. Wonder why. Okay. Why won't I use it? I remember all these. Why am I not?
In Rust. So there's some validity to this. It's hard enough to maintain things in Python, written in Python. It's a whole other language. It's a learning curve. There's something there, but Python on Python isn't perfect anyways, as we've been talking about. So I don't know if that's the real issue. And it is faster. So some validity, but not a lot.
I wish it was written in Lisp. Come on.
And then again, there's one about, because it's not official, which we talked about. Maybe you don't want it to be.
That might be a bonus. Masochism. Livelihood says masochism. And Armin concedes, yeah, that's a fair reason. Sure. Because you like to suffer. You don't want it the easy way.
And then I think there's the one here right from AJ.
Yeah, it says, because everyone said that about poetry, and I'm not sure I'm really ready to get that heard again, which is fair.
But as we've said, it's different. Different in terms of what it does and what it's taking on. So
yeah, and how much you have to buy in or not buy into it, basically. So one thing I really want to emphasize here, and that last comment drives it home. You get to choose how much you change your workflow or you don't. All right, so you literally could say, instead of typing pip install package, you could type uv pip install package. And when they first came out with this was like one of the very first things that it did. I asked Charlie, I said, Charlie, like, why not just uv install package or something, right? Keep it a little simpler. He says, we have big plans for uv, and we want to kind of namespace it. So uv pip are all the things that do pip stuff, but maybe uv python manages Python, for example, and so on. So that's why that's the sort of double command type of thing, the sub command with sub commands on top of that. But if your workflow is I type pip install package, and you're like, I'm not sure I'm ready to get that hurt again, putting the prefix UV on it is not that much of a mind shift, right? But this is massively faster, and it is a gateway, I would say, to other things. Okay, so at the one end of the spectrum, we have this like, well, you just put the letters UV in front, and you're good to go. Going a little bit further down, you can have UV managed virtual environments. Now, this looks pretty innocuous. You're like, okay, Michael, this is like Python-M venv dot venv, and create me a virtual environment with the folder name being .venv. Now, why do I say this is innocuous? Because it looks like typing Python-M, but this does way, way more. I can run this command. I do run this command many times a week on Linux systems that have no Python whatsoever installed. So what is going on here? When you run this, UV will say, okay, if you have Python installed, I'll just use that, use the latest one or whatever. But if you don't, it'll say, hold on, I have to install Python. And then I'll create a virtual environment from it. And it will use the latest version that it knows about, which again is why you need to do it the way when you install it and keep it up to date, because the more updated it is, the newer version. Or you can also specify like -- Python 3.13 and it'll pick the latest 3.13, or you could say .2 and it'll pick that one. And if you don't have that version, it will install it and then create it from here. So this is, on one hand, it looks like, well, it's just the same workflow, but why do I keep putting UV everywhere? But this is actually so much different. If you go to python.org and download Python and run it on Mac OS, I don't remember how long it takes to install because I haven't done it for a while, but it's like 15 seconds.
At least,
with,
yeah.
Yeah, with click-throughs. And probably on Windows it's longer, just because installs on Windows seem to take a while.
No comment.
Install Shield and the MSIXs and all those sort of deals. Anyway, this, if you don't have Python, this is like 2 seconds longer, 1.5 seconds longer, and now you have you have Python. I mean, I have Fiber, but still, it's ridiculous how smooth this is, and it just papers over the fact that you may or may not have Python, and you may or may not have the version you've asked for, and if you don't have any of that, you probably just want the new one.
I'm going to add a comment here. What do you think about this for someone who's in between?
I'm a fan of it. I hear it, and I am here for it.
Because I think you do this. You don't go full in on your existing projects anyways.
Yeah. So far what's on the screen is sort of Michael's flow a little bit, and I'll bring it back around. But yeah, I don't go the full project style for what I'm doing. And I'll talk about why in a minute. But so yeah, I'm not against. I really like aliases, and I'm not against it. I've had a few times where I've run into minor issues, but that one, for example, I think that's actually, just try that and see how you feel about it. Yeah. Okay. Further down, Michael, maybe we could start working on managing dependencies and pinning them, right? I would like to pip install -r requirements. And maybe you want to be a little bit more careful, right? There's a tool called pip tools that will look at a list of base requirements, like I want to use Django and requests, and I'm not going to constrain the version, but then I can use pip tools to say pip compile that, and it'll generate a pinned requirements files that everyone can pip install -r requirements, right? This is the Dependabot thing. I mean, UV is supported by Dependabot now, but even if it's not, but what I think is more important, like I have a kind of a love-hate, mostly hate relationship with Dependabot these days, but this is the gateway to you using UV and other people not being bought in yet. So for example, like the comments that,
right. That's the key thing. They don't have to.
Yeah, like the comments like, well, my team hasn't adopted it yet, it works. Like, okay, if you use a requirements.txt file,
yep,
you can still use UV to like manage and generate the requirements files. Or I do a lot of courses, as you do, Will, and teaching and stuff, and I don't want to necessarily make people use UV to set up the requirements, but I'll generate a requirements.txt, and however they want to run that, they can. They could say UV pip install -r, or they could just say pip -r, right? They install -r, right? It's a way to manage it and break free. And this also still has Dependabot support and many other legacy tools support as well, right? Like if you're doing CI or other stuff. So all the stuff on the screen so far is like, this is the skill issue that I put up. Like, look, did you know, like all the stuff you said you do, you don't want to change, just do it like this. And it still does it exactly the same, right? And it doesn't force a lot of people. For example, if I create a virtual environment from a Python that I installed with UV because I didn't have it, I can say --seed, and it also puts pip into that virtual environment. And from then on, I can say pip install or whatever, set up tools, and just go crazy with not even using UV anymore. You can also directly install Python. And one of the major, they just released UV8. I'm going to call it 8 because they're so hard on zero versions, like 0.8.0.
Yeah.
So
8
UV8.
or something now.
Yeah. So UV8 0.8.0 added the feature that when you UV Python install version of Python, it will put that in your path. So I could type Python 3.13 and it would actually, from anywhere, even outside of a virtual environment, it will run the thing that got installed here, which is pretty cool.
I'm going to add a comment on that.
Yes. And it's right here. Exactly. This is the line that replaces or is a alternate world of PyEnv, is that it installs it. And all these Pythons come from a special place called Python Build Standalone, which was a big GitHub project run by someone named Greg. I'm sorry, Greg, I forgot your last name. And it slowly, so that was like how do I build independent Pythons that I can download from somewhere? But there was no real tools to do that. And so UV and Astral said, hey, why don't we start using that as the backend source? And eventually Greg was like, you're basically doing most of the work of this repository and this project. And so now that was taken over by Astral, but it started out as an independent project. The big difference here is PyEnv, at least as far as I know, downloads and builds Python from source, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a slow thing, like 10 minutes type of thing if you haven't hit it before. Like I said, this line above here or the VEnv one, that could give you Python in 1.5 seconds, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't need to have the build tools, whereas the other one you do, and that might be a build error, and I've run into that, and it's a hassle. So that's why I'm such a fan of this. Or if you want to go all in on UV, which, as Will pointed out, I'm in the stuff above, not this bit below, but it does do like project management with its own lock files and its own way of working that is really nice. I do very much like it. I could say, create me a project, go into that project, and it doesn't even have a virtual environment, or maybe you don't even have Python yet. But when you say UV add dependency, it goes, oh, I see we don't have a lock file, I'll make one of those. I see we don't have a virtual environment, I'll make one of those and install this. And then you might need to, someone's made a change. I need to like refresh it. So Gregory Sork, thank you, Christian. Yeah, so you could say UV sync, which will just basically the equivalent of pip install -r requirements and like update it if there are changes. Right, because everything's a pin version. So a lot of talking here on this particular slide here, but the idea is there's a spectrum of how much in you want to go on UV and how much you can just kind of keep doing and get really tangible benefits. What do you say, Will?
Yep, I agree. That slide is the longest one by far, so thanks for everyone for sticking with us.
Yeah. So let's go and do something really quick. I'm going to install Python for you all here. I've got my Warp terminal. And first of all, let's see. I could say UV Python list, and we could just see what Pythons I have installed. Look at this. So apparently I've got some homebrew junk. And this vexes me. I can't. I wish.
Clean it out.
Well, I at this point, I used to not mind the homebrew stuff because I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of cool to have different versions of Python hanging around. But now I'm like, I'm such a purist because I'm like, I just want virtual environments, and I don't want like all these other versions that I might bump into. So
no, I'm the same. It just feels like a dirty room seeing all the Python versions all over my computer.
Exactly. It's like, who didn't pick up the laundry today? I'm really sorry, but come on in. So you can see that some of these, like this one right here, this one comes from UV. You can see it's in local share UV Python. And there's a way, I think it's UV Python, if I can spell, no, I can't. Python list -- managed Python. And that will show you just the ones that UV is responsible for. So this is usually my view because I'm like, I don't even want to, just don't even tell me about others. I don't want to see it.
Well,
right?
It's worth saying it's only 3.8 and up.
Yes, that's true. It's only the supported.
But I mean,
things. Yeah.
you have other problems if you're on 3.7 and below, to be fair.
Where is Python 2? What disrespect?
I mean,
Okay.
some people are stuck with it, but yeah, you can't use UV, but you can't use a lot of other stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys want to install Python?
Let's go.
Let's get 3.12. You can see I don't have it yet. All right, there we go. How long did that take? I don't know.
2 seconds.
2 seconds or something like that. And you can now see that I have Python 3.12 installed, right? Let's try something else. Let's say uv venv -- python 3.10. Let's call it virtual environment, right? Also don't have that. Create me a virtual environment. Now, I have a virtual environment with Python 3.10.18, which is the latest 3.10. And it downloaded and installed it as part of that. And I didn't even say, please install Python, now use that Python. I just said, I want a virtual environment like this, right?
Right.
This is part of the magic. It's just the seamlessness. It's not, it is fast. I don't even think, I'm going to keep harping on this. I don't even think that it's the fast that is the game changer. People say, well, I get that it's fast, but pip install is fast enough for me. It's like, yes, but it's like the smooth developer experience across these things, right?
And that's the feedback I've heard from people who aren't early adopters is speed, but it's more than speed.
Yeah, it's a lot more than speed. Okay. Over to you, Will.
Okay, so I'm going to take over now. And this is pretty quick, but I'm going to show you. So in PyCharm, we have built-in support for it. This is the standard set a new project. You could do traditional, Conda, custom environment. Fire it up. It's already created. PyProject TOML. It's got your VMV. So you don't even have to install, or you do have to install UV, but then you can just work with it here. I'm going to give an example later showing how we can add packages and stuff. But I think you have something else to show, Michael, before we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to point out that people know me, they know me, that I use PyCharm all the time.
You might even have a course on it.
I do actually have a pretty awesome course on it. Just redone this just a little while ago. I do a lot of stuff with UV and PyCharm, and when the built-in tools using UV are like, oh, I don't know how to do that, you can just drop into the terminal and type UV something, and the terminal already activates the virtual environment, so UV knows where to work. Like, it's pretty seamless to sort of flow between terminal and UI tools.
But I think you're going to show us something with Docker now.
I do want to show you all something with Docker. So this comes from a new course I've coming up called Just Enough Python for Data Scientists, and that'll be out next week, maybe. I've been grinding it. I've been in video mode for a while. One of the aspects of this in that course I talk about is just sort of creating reproducibility for data scientists using Docker. Check this line out here. This pip install uv pip install -r requirements. This is a data science project, and if you haven't done data science, you might not realize how brutal installing data science things can be. I mean, there's a reason that Conda and Anaconda exists, and certainly came to be. With the advent of wheels, it's less of a challenge, but there's still quite a bit heavyweight. So this project has 99 dependencies, and I think it's about 100 megs of dependency data. And yet here's a Docker build that installs all of those from scratch in under a second using UV. And if you look at the 5 of 10 step that I didn't highlight, it creates a virtual environment, downloads and installs Python in 2 seconds. So this is a fresh Ubuntu image that did not have Python and has no compiler, like for building the data science libraries and so on. And in under 3 seconds, it both got Python, got a virtual environment, and installed 199 dependencies. Heavyweight ones, right?
Yeah. Docker's scary. Actually, shout out to my colleague who wants to go on record saying that. But it's true.
It is.
It's either indispensable or scary. No in between.
It's indispensable and scary. Okay, so here's the code over here. Let's go in to, I believe that was this one, yeah. So over here we have a Docker file, and it just says what we're going to do is we're going to copy over requirements.txt. This has already been, got the UV pip compiled version. In fact, let's look at it. So at least in my world, I have this little, like, literally this, those three things are the inputs. What is the output? Oh, no. More requirements.txt. There we go.
This is
All
good.
of
I'm
this.
learning here too.
All these are pages of requirements that are pinned when you run that. And so this is just pip install. You can see it's like trying to, my little AI terminal is trying to say, like, you could build it again. And you know what? I guess I could build it again. Look how fast that was. All right. This is not a Docker thing. That's just, that looked at those 100 dependencies, got the new version, see if there's any new versions there. And I could say UV pip install, no, I can't spell, requirements. Look, it updated too. 6 milliseconds.
And you can use the really cool UV tree command to see, exactly what's in. I don't know in Docker actually how that works.
UV pip tree?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your case.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't realize that.
I mean, you could use tree before if you downloaded it, but this is the UV version.
Well, I had used pip dept for dependencies to show you why stuff is installed. I didn't realize they also had like consumed this thing. Interesting. See, I'm learning stuff too. Amazing.
There you go.
All right, so let's go back here. So I have Docker compose alias to DC because I'm not a monster. Could build it. You see, this is the first build, apparently, because I made some changes, I believe. So it's running stuff. It's like 3.5 seconds. Incredible. I'm not going to wait that long for Python.
So, Michael, to be fair, someone wants to know your internet speed.
My internet speed is good, and that is a valid comment. However, once you run it once, it's cached. That none of that stuff.
That's the key thing is the caching. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that pip install -r thing was almost all of that was working off of cache. And great comment.
There was one more. This is a subtle one. What would you say to this, Michael?
Yeah. So this is, are you going all in? Is it like, I'm placing all my chips on green in roulette and we're just going to roll the wheel, baby, and it's going to work. And hey, if it might be amazing, but it might not. And so for me, I already had this really nice workflow with pip compile, with pip tools, pip compile, with pip and requirements.txt and integrate with Dependabot and other tools. And I just want to make UV nice with that. All right, I just want to make UV do that better. If you say, I want to start working where everything is based around a pyproject.toml, UV lock files, and the way that I interact with them is through specifying that 100% through UV, then you would use UV add.
Yep.
Right?
I'm the same way. My learnjanko.com site, I use UV pip, but all the new stuff is UV project, UV add.
Interesting.
Just because I don't feel like going through the existing workflow and fully switching over. Maybe I will, but I don't have to. So I don't.
Okay. Give me a sec.
You're very brave to do this live.
That's all right. We're all good. So I need to make some not very meaningful. I need to get out of full screen to do this. So hold on. There's I have a duplication, but it's not really duplicated. So I need to make a quick change, which apparently is off screen for you guys, but that doesn't really matter. What I need to do is open up, make just one kind of change so I can get this to rebuild, because that's where the magic is. Once you get this stuff building one time. So I made a change to that line right there, which means anything after it will rebuild, right?
Yeah.
So look at this, Docker compose build. Remember, previously it was 5 seconds. And you also talked about internet speed. That was an internet speed dependent step. Watch this. Dun, 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 dun. Why is it starting over? There we go. Where has it gone? 1.7. What changed? Well, normally, if you just do this line of code without the stuff on the left of it, in Docker, every time you start over, it's going to be a fresh setup, right? But Docker has this mount command. So if this was pip install, like what would this be if this was just pip install?
Ooh. How much slower?
Let's give it a go. So we can see it go while I'm talking. But this mount command says this anything written here, I want that cached outside of the Docker image into just a local place on my hard drive. So when I ran this, not only did UV do all of its stuff fast, but it saw that they was already downloaded and saved to what it thought was /root /.cache /uv /whatever. I don't know, there's a tree in there. But with this command, it says, hey, we're not going to download it again. And that is awesome for 2 reasons. Not just awesome for fast builds. If that wasn't the case, every time this image built, it goes and it downloads 100 megs from pypi.org, which is a huge tax on it and is a huge sustainability problem for Python, the ecosystem, right? Like the bandwidth of PyPI is probably the biggest possible failure point for Python, period.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try it again. I don't know if I got this. I just rewrote the Docker file real quick, so we'll see how well Michael did. All right, look at it. Look at it go. Pip install, baby.
This is the real test. If you know the course before you release it, can you just change it and do it live?
Look at this. I know. Look at why is it so slow? Yep, still going. I told
Even
you
with
that a lot of
fast
dependencies.
internet,
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I have like gigabit speed.
21 seconds.
Not just theoretical. Like it's like 950 megabytes, megabit, no megabit.
Don't get distracted.
I know, but look at this, folks. This is a different sort of deal.
And this matters because it's all the time. It's for you getting a coffee, for your team, like running tests. If you do that, it's just like constant interruption that you just don't want to have. And you don't have to have.
Yeah, CI/CD, right? Like if somebody does a check-in, and this is a small little sample project, but if it takes 5 minutes for your PR to sort of run the test before you can evaluate it, like versus, oh, it was instant. People start doing things like, oh, I added that as a pre-commit hook. It's like, what? That used to take 20 seconds. Who would ever do that?
Yeah.
All right. Look at, how did it do this time? Where's my my pip install gone? It's hiding.
Wait, the slow one you just did?
Yeah.
It was way up, or is up a little bit?
No, I reran it again.
Where's
there we go. 1.6 seconds.
Okay.
Acceptable. I accept it. And of course, if you build it again when there's no changes, then it's, what does it say? Half a second, whatever, 0.1 seconds. So this, the reason I wanted to do this Docker demo for you all is it's not just I type a little bit less or Will waits a little bit less to pip install a thing. There's like this cascading chain of what becomes possible and easy or instant versus waiting or seamless. Like again, I did not install Python on this machine. I literally just said, make me a virtual environment. And you see I added the -- seed so it would install pip so I could give you the pip example. That didn't used to be there, right? Like that line right there creates a virtual environment, installs pip, makes sure the Python is there, et cetera, et cetera. Super, super cool.
So we're going to try to leave room for questions at the end, but I know there's 2 more things I think. So publishing, You can also
Publishing.
publish package.
Publishing is so fast. Let me show you this, right? You might think, okay, how do I get stuff onto PyPI and so on? Let's just go back here. Yeah, all right. So here we are, yeah. There's another chapter that has a PyProject TOML set up here. Right, so I've got a PyProject TOML. I've got this math fib library I might want. Right, it's got all the stuff. How in the world do I take this and put it on somewhere I can put it onto PyPI? Well, Will, I'm glad you asked.
This is something I'm not as familiar with, actually, so I wanted to see it in action.
Yeah, so when you got your PyProject TOML, you set up a build backend. Right now, apparently it's setup tools that I could put. It doesn't have to be that. I probably should just put UV these days. But if I want, no matter how that project was created, whether it, like you can see, it was a setup tools type of thing, not even a UV type thing. There's your will. Done. You see dist mathfib 0.1.0. Of course, it's like a silly little project, but you want to publish it. What's your password? It's published. Answer is token. It's my username. Please don't share this. No, then you put your actually super long. It used to be you put your password here. Now you have to get a publishing API token because they've enforced 2FA, which I support. So you can't put your password here because it would 2FA challenge you. So you've got to go set up on PyPI, set up like an API publishing key, which is giant and long, hopefully. But then if I had put it in, like that thing would literally be on PyPI and we'd be done. UV build, UV publish. I change the version number, I UV build, I UV publish. I have another release. How about that? Not terrible.
Okay, so I think I'm going to take over and show something quickly. If you have questions, put them in. We'll try to answer them in a couple minutes. But so this is that project I had before. I want to show just what the workflow is. So I'll add a new file. Let's say I want to import HTTPX. And now the squiggly says, oh, get out of there. Install package. Boom, it does. So I can see here it is in dependencies in my PyProject. And it's also, if I hunted, maybe a UV lock.
Yeah. Now Pedro is feeling better because PyCharm just did a UV ad behind the scenes, right?
Yes, I believe so. All right, so let's do something super simple. HTTPX.get. Sure, we'll do Google print. Nice autocomplete here. I'll just do status code. And then if we run 200, and again, depends how you want to use it. You can go terminal, do a traditional PyCharm flow. It's got support.
Yeah, that's super nice.
If we had more time, I would show you more, but I think we're almost out of time. There was something on tool list you want to show, right?
I do want to add one really quick thing that that we're not going to have time to cover. But another cool thing that UV does is allows you to ship complex one file scripts to people. So for example, well, if you wanted to share that with me and you're like, Michael's not very good with Python, but I know he can at least use the terminal. So he could type Python space this file.
Yep.
He could do it. You could give me this file, but what it would say is HTTPX not found, right? Import failed. So you can put just a set of comments at the top that list out the dependencies, would say just requires HTTPX. And if I say UV run app.py, it will go, oh, we need a virtual environment with HTTPX installed. Let me just do that silently for the person and then run it. That's a super cool feature.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yep. Okay. Also, UV tool. This is a really nice way to get things installed on your computer. If you just say UV tool install, if there's anything that is a Python-based CLI tool and you would like to use it, UV tool install is awesome. It'll create a dedicated virtual environment for that tool. And I bet it's been it's been a minute since I've run this. So I can say this, right? But I can also say UV tool upgrade all. Is that right? I think so. No. Upgrade. I don't know why it's like that. Maybe dash all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad autocomplete. And look, it installed this new one, but it'll actually even look inside. If I go back enough, it'll say like, okay, PLS happens to be using, let's say it's using Rich. I don't think it is, but whatever. If Rich had an update and it was compatible, it'll actually look at the dependencies and like refresh those as well. So it'll stay right on top of it. So just UV tool install, I don't know, what do you want? Glances? Do I have glances? Sadly, yes. It won't install it. I don't want to just totally like go off and start throwing things in there. But these are really nice ways. And they're incredible ways to ship CLI tools to people, because all you got to do is create a Python package, UV build, UV publish. And if that package has an entry point, it becomes commands. Like you can see here for like black, it has black and black D are the commands. So it's telling me I could type black D. I don't know what that does, but apparently it does that, right? So super, super neat way to install and manage tools. Last thing I just want to give a shout out to is I did a couple of interviews with Charlie Marsh, but most recently about this big refresh and the project side and UV lock side of UV. Super popular, interesting. Check that out at talkpython.fm/476. I also interviewed Charlie and Carl Meyer about Thai more recently, but that's not the topic of this presentation, is it, Will?
No, it's not. Yes, thank you for joining. I don't see the list of questions, but you can contact me, contact Michael. Maybe we'll talk about this again. I know we covered a lot of stuff, and Michael, thank you for taking the time to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.